If you're stuck at 20% body fat or above, you clicked the right video, because most guys at this stage are doing everything right. They're training hard, they're eating clean, taking supplements, yet still carrying unwanted belly fat. After coaching men for 9 years, I'll show you the real reasons your body is not getting leaner and how to finally break below that 20% to get six-pack lean. So once the scale stops moving, this is where most guys start to think, maybe I just need to go even harder. But that's not always the case, and you'll see why in a minute. See, at high levels of body fat, fat loss just feels easier. At almost any diet and exercise is going to work. But once you hit and dip below that 20%, it starts to feel like your body is like defending its weight a little bit. Kind of like if you had a thermostat, and the leaner you get, the more it lowers the temperature to conserve energy, and it's like your body starts adapting, right? But here's the thing. The reason you're stuck might not be the same as the next guy. So before you start cutting all your calories and starving yourself or taking on 20,000 steps a day, let's look at the biological reasons that could be causing your body to fight back. So what I'm about to cover, I refer to as weight loss resistance. This is about when your biology is somewhat resisting and making it harder to lose fat. If you ignore this, not even discipline alone will fix it. So take two guys, for example, Vladimir and Donald. They're both 45, working 50 hours a week, married with kids. They train 2 to 3 times a week, and they need to both lose about 40 pounds, which is 20 kilos of fat. But Donald is under constant stress. He sleeps only 4 to 5 hours a night and probably has mild insulin resistance and lower testosterone compared to Vladimir, who sleeps 7 to 8 hours, takes breaks to unwind, and has healthy levels with his hormones, minimal insulin resistance. Now, who do you think is going to lose fat more easily? Obviously, it's going to be Vladimir, because Donald's body is not primed for fat loss. It's dysfunctional, it's inflamed, and it's like fighting for survival from a cortisol point of view. This is where most men get frustrated, eat stricter, force more cardio, but the needle just isn't moving, and they feel depleted. The body isn't functioning optimally, and here are the most common reasons this happens. The first one isn't a dysfunction, it's a natural adaptation. See, when you lose enough body weight, your BMR slightly reduces and your body burns a little less calories each day. So the same workouts, steps, and the diet that got you 10 pounds off might not get the next 10 pounds off unless you adjust your deficit, right? This is metabolic adaptation, which happens to everyone. But this next issue can actually make it worse. So when stress and cortisol is always high, it raises your blood sugar, which disrupts your insulin sensitivity over time, and this makes you feel hungrier even if you're not doing much at all. Because cortisol can also increase ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone, and decreases leptin, which is your fullness hormone. So basically, your body is like being told to store more fat and retain more water from inflammation. And there's more. Stress also reduces your stomach acid, which can cause reflux, bloating, gas, diarrhea, even long-term gut issues. And this ties into the next weight loss resistance issue. Even one bad night of sleep reduces your insulin sensitivity and spikes your hunger hormones, making you crave more food while burning less fat. It's like your body tries to eat more energy that it's not getting from rest and recovery. And this becomes this vicious cycle between stress and sleep. Now, we all know we should sleep more and stress less, but in real life, with kids, commitments, work, business, bills, I know it's not that easy. Modern life is designed to keep us all busy, to keep us all stressed, sick, and distracted. But the truth is, a good life and good health doesn't really require that much stuff. We've just been conditioned to overload ourselves. And because everybody is unhealthy and stressed and sick, then that is accepted and that is normal. So eventually you have to be stubborn enough to say no for your own good. When you've truly suffered enough from fatigue and burnout and just poor health, that is usually when change will happen and it will stick. And that leads to another layer of the stress, which is the psychological kind. Now, many of us carry deep-rooted fears and anxieties from our childhood that quietly stresses our nervous system every single day. If this resonates, I highly recommend checking out Gabor, John Bradshaw, and Tim Fletcher, just to name a few. Their work on trauma, childhood, all that, it blows my mind in a really good way. So with sleep, there's just no easy fix. It's all about quality time in bed consistently, and it works when it's implemented, but it does take patience, testing, and commitment. So don't sleep on this, or actually maybe you should sleep on this to get better sleep. Now let's come back to insulin. This is huge for men who are above 20% body fat with a higher visceral fat around the gut, because your body becomes less efficient at burning carbs for energy, which means carbs can be stored as fat more easily only when you're in a surplus. I must stress this because people think insulin resistance means you can't lose fat. That is absolutely not true. It just makes it a little bit tougher. We can't gain more fat if you're in a deficit, just like you can't pay off debt with monopoly money. So unless you are a diabetic, which I'm not discussing here at all, it's not about diabetes. This usually happens because you already have too much body fat. For most men, insulin resistance is actually a side effect, not a cause of the fat gain. It's like a dam that is overflowing and it spills into the bloodstream. The good news is, the more fat you lose, the better your insulin sensitivity will become. But until that improves, a normal calorie deficit might not be enough to trigger steady progress for where you're currently at. And there's another side effect that can be common with insulin resistance. This is usually caused by a combination of stress, poor sleep, and excess body fat. And I'm referring to low testosterone, which can mean a lower metabolism, less muscle retention, lower energy, and low libido. TRT has become a popular solution and it can help, but it is not the first step. In my experience, I haven't taken it, but working with clients who have, the natural trifecta should always come first. Sleep, nutrition, strength training. Master them first before you consider jabbing yourself with a needle. Then the therapy is like the cherry and the icing on the already delicious cake. But that's not all. By the time most guys reach their 30s or their 40s, after years of carrying around this extra weight, they start noticing joint pain and gut issues or food sensitivities, and this keeps the body in like a chronic state of low to high inflammation, which makes recovery and fat loss more difficult. I've personally dealt with having celiac disease and other, long-term side effects, which can be quite debilitating if I don't actually manage my stress and diet wisely. So if your body is already jacked up and inflamed constantly, or your gut is a little bit messed up and you're training like a beast 5 or 6 days a week, that can actually backfire. It's a good idea to prioritize recovery to help reduce some inflammation, spend more time in a parasympathetic nervous system state, which is a relaxed state, which means actually switching off and not burning out your brain all the time. Sometimes what your body really needs is just less chaos, more recovery, less alcohol, more water, less TV, more sleep, less dramas, more llamas. I don't know why I said that, but anyway. Speaking of inflammation, which is often autoimmune related conditions, one that can really crush your fat loss efforts is your thyroid. Slow thyroid or hypothyroidism can reduce your BMR by hundreds of calories a day, as well as lead to depression, higher cholesterol, body aches, low energy, and just all these other potential side effects which suck. But there are many ways to improve this even without medication. If that sounds familiar, I recommend checking out Dr. Weston Childs. His research on the thyroid optimization is pretty awesome. Now, when you start stacking 2 or 3 or more of these conditions together, you have serious motivation to fix this. And you're no longer just dealing with a fat loss issue, you're dealing with a full inner health reset by taking this approach. The good news is chronic issues can improve, but not overnight. If it took you 10 years to feel like shit, don't expect to fix this in 10 days. Give yourself at least 10 months of consistent effort, and the change can be absolutely life-changing. Because when your stress lowers, your sleep improves, fat starts to drop, your hormones start to rebalance, and then inflammation declines. Eventually, your body stops fighting itself and it starts supporting you. This is the biological side effect of fat loss resistance that most guys never check at the root cause. But what if your metabolism is fine? What if you don't have any weight loss resistance at all, and it's actually your plan that is holding you back from getting leaner? Let's cover that next. This is where most guys get tripped up because they're doing everything right, eating healthy, hitting the gym 3 to 5 times a week, minimizing alcohol, not eating out too often, hitting 10,000 steps or more. But when we look closer, there's almost always a bottleneck that's being overlooked or completely ignored. And it's kind of like having a leaky hose. If there are kinks or small leaks in the hose, the flow slows down. And that's kind of like fat loss are those leaks. And they're the little things that add up that you might not be seeing. A common one looks like this. You crush it from Monday to Thursday, but then it's subconsciously you're moving less because you're a bit tired from work or from training or just life stress and pressures. Then Friday night hits, you have a drink, extra food, snacks, desserts, whatever. And before you know it, your weekly deficit is gone. You're working hard, but then it's like your data resets every single weekend. So despite having all these several good days, you're actually just maintaining, not burning. So for example, with Nick, one of my clients, he knew how to eat well, knew how to train in the gym, but his busy schedule just made it very difficult to consistently lose fat without feeling like he had to overhaul his entire lifestyle. So we built a system around his work and his family routine, just 2 to 3 workouts a week and only eating 3 to 4 meals a day. He wasn't starving and doing all this while traveling pretty often. As a result, he ended up dropping 110 pounds without any extreme restriction. So here's a few more planned problems that can cause these plateaus you need to break through. Now, none of this is new, but one of these things is likely holding you back. Even if you're training 5 days a week, it's common for your daily movement to quietly diminish without you noticing. Sitting down a little bit longer, fidgeting less, taking fewer steps, and that alone could erase 300 to 600 calories a day. The simple fix is just to add more daily lists, which is your low intensity, steady state activity. The easiest one is going to be walking because you can do it anywhere at any time. I even stand up and walk around my house for 5 or 10 minutes after eating because it helps digestion and just adds a little bit of extra steps that I would have not had if I just sat down and was scrolling my phone and reaching for snacks. The guy who trains 3 days a week but hits 10,000 steps will burn more fat than the guy doing 5 days a week only hitting 4,000 steps. But this becomes easier when you fix this next thing. Most people barely track their workouts properly, let alone their calories, their sleep, and their recovery and stress. So when progress stalls down, they're confused and they start guessing or randomly chasing different quick fixes and trying to figure out what really works. But the best way to monitor your progress is through your weekly average, not your day-to-day fluctuations. What that means is that tracking daily, but reviewing the trends and the average of the 7 days, because technology has never been easier to do this. You've got devices that will track your steps and your sleep combined. There's apps that'll do food tracking and like AI scanning to guesstimate your meals. And then all you need to do is look at your week-to-week blocks to see the true direction of where you're actually going. And those signals will tell you if your plan is actually working before the scale actually changes. And then once you've got that data, you can spot this problem almost immediately. If you spend 3 days in a deficit, but 4 days in a maintenance phase or above, then you are not going to be in a fat loss state. You're just on a calorie yo-yo, right? And this is what keeps neutralizing your progress. It's the big days that like blow out, they have a spillover effect. So if you binge on a Saturday, it could take you till Tuesday before your body is back in a deficit again. This is a lag effect that I'm talking about. And this is why it feels slow even when you're perfect for like most of the week. So the fix is you have to cap these blowouts. Have a limit or a budget that you've planned ahead. And then if you do go over, compensate faster the next day by eating a little bit lighter and just skimming calories from all of your meals, not starving yourself, right? This also applies to what I call calorie creep. When you start getting leaner, there's less room for error. But most guys think the leaner the body means, the more freedom I have. Or they just get too comfortable at the halfway point and they get stuck there, which leads to lazy tracking, more snacking, and eyeballing or forgetting portions. And before long, you've added hundreds of unnoticed calories every single day. Then a whole month goes by and nothing's changed and you're frustrated about it. The fix is to accept that slacking off will not get you to your end goal. Keep tracking and do not let your mind hide from the truth in the data. If you feel like you've lost momentum, that is actually not true at all because you are still in momentum. You've just slightly changed the direction that you're heading in. So change the direction back to where you want to be, not where you used to be. However, doing this perfectly still will not avoid this next problem. So another reason that progress slows down is when guys undereat protein while also undertraining. So they're losing muscle along with losing fat, and since muscle burns more calories, their metabolism is shrinking a little bit faster. This is why sarcopenia, muscle loss, is a big problem for men over 35. So eat enough protein every single day. It's very important, and if you don't know how much to get, use a calculator, link is in my description. And make sure your workouts are actually hard enough every single week so you're not wasting a workout and you're progressively getting stronger. This is how you're going to retain the muscle that you have even if you're in a deficit. Or you might even build muscle depending on where you're starting. So if you have been training seriously, consistently for 2 years or more, it's going to be tough to gain more muscle in a cut. But if you are newer or you're getting back into it after some time off, you can absolutely build and burn fat at the same time. And this last problem is so common that you can't really miss it. When your meals aren't structured or satisfying, your body will let you know, usually around 8 or 9 p.m. at night, when you're meant to be winding down and getting ready to have a good sleep for the night. You might be eating healthy meals, but you're not eating enough volume to feel full and satisfied. Or it's just a mental habit because late night snacking feels relaxing, gives you a dopamine hit while watching Netflix or scrolling TikTok. Either way, build your meals around high volume carbs and lean proteins, foods like potatoes, pumpkin, vegetables, salads, and lean meats. You can still eat fattier cuts of meat if you want, or sweets, or even shitty junk food if you really want to, but you have to reduce the portions because it's got to fit your budget. If it doesn't fit your deficit, you're not going to lose fat. But fill up on the good stuff first so you're not like sniffing around for scraps at 9 p.m. like a stray dog. You also don't need endless variety of foods. Boring, consistent meals often work the best because they're predictable, they're satisfying, and they're easy to track because you can automate your meal prep and tracking, right? Once you fix these small leaks, your movement, your tracking, your consistency, and your structure of everything you're doing, fat loss starts flowing again nicely. And at this stage, it's all about building a flexible system that works around and in your lifestyle, not against it. You do not want to be fighting yourself because it won't last. And once you do that, fat loss becomes predictable and consistent, which is the exact approach that I take with my one-on-one clients. And if you want help doing the same, that's exactly what I do inside my Metabolic Recomp Method coaching. You can apply for coaching using the link below, or grab the systems that I use in my step-by-step blueprint method to get started today at your own pace. Link is also in the description. Then go watch this video to see why the most boring plan is guaranteed to lose belly fat. I'll explain more in this video.